Attention, the following list is based off my own personal opinions. If you like any of the games in this list, that's perfectly fine. Please do not harass the developers or anyone who likes these games. Thank you, and please enjoy. Five Nights at Freddy's is probably the first series that I think of when I hear the term fan game, and for good reason. If you go on GameJolt right now and search for FNAF, you'll find lots, and I mean lots, of fan games, either based on existing properties or featuring original characters. There are a lot of fan games in both departments that are honestly really damn good. Five Nights at Candy's, Showman's The Awakening, Treasure Island at Abuela's Casa, Dormitabis Remastered. So many of these games really push the limits of being a fan game and show just how creative a game with a concept like FNAF's can be. Unfortunately, I can't really say that all of the fan games are good. You know how it goes. Lots of fan games can be pretty bad. That's why I wanted to make a list of the 10 games that I consider to be the bottom of the barrel in terms of gameplay, graphics, mechanics, and even story. Before we begin, I'd like to lay down a couple of ground rules. First off, I'm only including games that were released as finished, meaning no demos, betas, or games that only serve as tests. Second, I'm not counting any game mods that don't drastically change the experience, as those don't count for the sake of the list. Third, in no way will I be critiquing the game's developers as a point for the games being bad. Without further ado, let's get on with the list, starting off with the least offensive of the games ranked here, which is... Number 10. Five Nights at Candy's 2. While the visuals are pretty good and the horror is well done, the gameplay is just way too easy and boring. Most of the characters use the same audio lure mechanic, minus Chester, who even then is already easy to deal with anyway. It's actually possible to beat the game without leaving the cameras, as a matter of fact. It's such a huge downgrade from the first game, which even if it felt similar to FNAF 1, it at least had its own style and originality to it. Five Nights at Candy's 2 isn't a horrible game, but as a game in the Five Nights at Candy's series as a whole, it's easily the weakest in the series so far. The only thing you can really get out of it from the gameplay is the lore and the minigames. Thankfully, there's a fan version of the game that fixes its problems called Five Nights at Candy's 2 But Better, go figure. But on its own, Five Nights at Candy's 2 is honestly just lackluster and not very memorable outside of maybe the Night 6 boss battle against Rat and Cat. It's not horrible, but it's really not that great either, and sits comfortably in a state of mediocrity. Number 9. Dormitabis, 2018. You may be surprised that this isn't lower on the list considering its infamy. In my opinion, the gameplay isn't too bad, and it's certainly a unique gameplay loop, but it's constantly undermined by various flaws, some minor and some major. The game has a lot of bugs, with assets not loading in, mechanics that just suddenly stop working, random crashes, that kind of stuff. There are other problems too, like the ugly visuals, the below-average voice acting, the weird animatronic design, some of the gameplay mechanics, and perhaps one of the most notable problems, the story. If you know Dormitabis, then you know exactly what's wrong with its story. I don't really feel like getting into it, but trust me, it's disturbing. And if you know the developer of the game, yeah, it's pretty easy to see where those story elements came from. Thankfully, the game got a remaster without the involvement of the original creator that improves the game tremendously. But the original is still pretty questionable in terms of quality. It has some redeeming qualities, but I mean, yeah. Number 8. Five Nights at Treasure Island 2. Let the Show Begin. This is one of Malrat's many old FNATI games, so I won't fault him too much considering how at the time he was still in his early game-making phases and considering how much he's improved nowadays. But as a game in general, it's honestly a very boring game without much to say about it, aside from its pretty good aesthetics and its admittedly weird cutscenes. Right away, the first red flag is how hard it is to hear the phone guy. In addition, the models' designs are pretty uninspired, basically just being dusty versions of the original characters. The worst aspect of the game, however, is the gameplay, which is incredibly boring and tedious. Every character uses the same mechanics, that being the audio and one of the cameras mechanic, which is already an exact copy of the camera shutdown mechanic for the original FNATI, but less unique. And since every character uses that mechanic, the gameplay completely lacks challenge. You don't even need to monitor the suits using the cameras. All you have to do is wait for them and then just play audio. Even then, you're barely given any time to react. I feel as though if there were more mechanics and better AI, then the game could have been good, but as is, it's honestly pretty crap. Imagine if someone was making a remake of the game designed to improve its gameplay or something. Just a thought. Number 7. FNAF in real time. I'm gonna be real with you guys. I cannot stand FNAF in real time. And I honestly feel as though it was incredibly overhyped. I will admit that the graphics of the game do look nice, although that's only really because it's a one-to-one recreation of FNAF 1, a game that already looked good. Other than its few positives, this is a game that was so underwhelming and boring that it honestly kind of nullified its main gimmick. The gameplay is basically just FNAF 1, but way too easy and tedious, with very little to spice it up other than a Night 3 boss battle with Foxy, which in itself is an odd decision. Why Night 3 of all nights, and why Foxy? The game also has a nothing burger story, and its hyped up new character, brother, Golden Freddy replacement and self-insert aside, just kinda does nothing in the story and gameplay. The jump scares are also really bad, and really undermine the scare in jump scare. Overall, FNAF IRT had a decent concept, but its execution is just too half-baked to be anything notable. It just feels like a parody of FNAF 1 more than an honest remake, a project that lacks passion and direction. Project that feels like an industry plan, like it was just made so YouTubers can play it, and nothing more. Number 6. Nightmare Before Disney, version 1. This is another old FNATI mall rat game, so I won't be too harsh, but this game has a similar mechanic problem to LTSB, and that's how it only has one mechanic for keeping the suits away, that being the flashlight. All you do is shine your light on the suits when they enter your office, and that's it. Here though, it's way much more offensive considering how each night lasts 10 whole minutes, not hyperbole by the way, which just makes the game even more boring. Even if the game has some redeeming qualities like its visuals and the Disney Catacomb section and the admittedly cool boss fight in concept against Nightmare Mick, it's honestly just a slog to get through, and its length makes LTSB better than it by default. Number 5. Five Nights at Pingus 1. Now look, I know these games are pretty much joke games, but this is a special case because compared to the other games in the same series which had admittedly decent gameplay, the first game of the Five Nights at Pingus series is honestly pretty bad. It's an incredibly nothing experience that feels extremely underdeveloped compared to the rest of the games, and the AI is batshit crazy even on night 1. I will cut it some slack since it's the first game of the series and there's nowhere to go but up, but damn, the game is just pretty poor in quality. Granted, it doesn't need to be quality considering, well, look at it. But when the rest of the games are this surprisingly good, I feel like the game is a D1 disappointment in my book if you wanted to look at where the series started. Thankfully, the series did improve with Five Nights at Pingus 2 and the series managed to find its footing. I know it sounds crazy to take a series like Five Nights at Pingus seriously, but trust me, I am nothing if not passionate about these games. Number 4. The Return to Freddy's. This one is probably one of the most infamous FNAF fan games that isn't Dormitabis, and for good reason. It's really bad. Like, really, really bad. Most of its assets are stolen from the original FNAF games and other sources, and all the events in the game are scripted, meaning that there's no AI in the game at all. Initially, the game also stole the character of Candy the Cat, who at the time didn't have his own game, and renamed him Sugar. Just look at the jump scare, it's literally just Toy Bonnie's jump scare but with Candy's face over it. And these camera frames are absolutely atrocious, who signed off on these? Also, it's pretty much important to note that the game was originally called Five Nights at Freddy's 3, causing people to be confused about the quality of the game. It got to the point where Scott Cawthon himself reached out to the creator to either take down the game or change the name. I don't really have any strong opinions on the rest of the TRTF series as I think they're just pretty average at best, but this one is just so bad that it had to be noted. Number 3. Five Nights at Chuck E. Cheese's, 2015. Before Radiance came in with the absolutely amazing remake of this game, this was the original version we had back then. Boy, did it not age well at all. Now, considering that the developer was likely someone still learning game development, I won't blame the issues on them, especially since they did lead the production of the remake. But in summary, this game is very, very bad. It's shit. For multiple reasons. Firstly, the visuals make this game look like Five Nights at Google Images, since a lot of these are just real images and PNGs. And as for the gameplay, it's terrible. I will admit that the winding gate mechanic was a unique idea, and I imagine many did too considering it came back for the remake, but it and other mechanics are ultimately ruined by the AI. You can expect to die as early as night 1, at 12 AM even. In addition, the phone calls are low-pitched and hard to understand. The game just kinda has no story to it at all. It doesn't need to have a story, but with the phone calls it seems like it's trying to, but I can't understand it. While I do respect it, since without it we wouldn't have Five Nights at Chuck E. Cheese's rebooted, on its own, it's terrible. Number 2. Five Nights at Treasure Island, The Revenge. What can I even say that hasn't been said about this game already? Five Nights at Treasure Island, The Revenge is an uncanny mess of mechanics and unpolished visuals that has so many bugs and glitches that make the game feel like it was not only not finished, but that it was barely started at all. And what makes it worse is that everything in concept has so much potential for a good game, but in execution it's just a huge mess. Not only are the jump scares some of the worst I've ever seen, not only is the AI abysmal, especially in the later nights, not only is the voice acting very inconsistent in quality, but the wasted potential is honestly just the most insulting part about the game. The characters, story, mechanic ideas, they're all very good on paper, but in general, the game is just so bad that thinking about what could have been makes it that much more horrible. Even with the so bad it's good charm that can be derived from the game, this is a game that is in desperate need of a remake so badly. Whew. And here we are at the end of the list. Viewers, do yourself a favor and buckle in, because this is a game that is just so awful that it's astonishing. I have very passionate feelings of hatred for this one, and I am not going to hold back on it at all. So prepare for number 1, Abandoned Discovery Island 2.0. This game is my personal least favorite FNAF fan game ever made, and also ranks among the lowest in my least favorite games ever made in general. It's such an insult to the original ADI in so many ways that it's honestly impressive how bad they screwed it up. What's worse is that when people bring up Abandoned Discovery Island, they're more likely referring to this crappy fan-made one, which is just awful to think about. The idea that this game, being so much worse than the original, has managed to overshadow it in every way just makes me feel sick. You may be wondering, how could the game be that bad in your eyes? Oh, you don't know. My answer is simple. It's gameplay, its characters, and its overbearing presence online. Many of the characters are either recycled from other games, have mechanics that are the same as other characters, and just don't belong in the setting of the game whatsoever. Why are characters like Dipper and Vanellope in this game when they don't belong at all, considering how they weren't around at the time of the opening of the real-life attraction the game was originally based on? And speaking of the characters, why are there so many of them? I kid you not, there are like 90 characters, and considering just how bad the gameplay already is compared to the original, with this many characters, it honestly goes from feeling bad to play to being pretty much unplayable. Why people believe this version of the game is actually the real thing is absolutely beyond me, but at the end of the day, this game is so absolutely insulting that I hate it with every fiber of my being. And while I can say positive things about the other games on this list, I can't think of anything that applies to this game specifically, considering that a majority of the game is pretty much stolen. To sum it all up, ADI 2.0 is a directionless, unplayable, unpolished, and passionless game that feels just as fun as a concrete brick being thrown between your legs. Whew, now that I've said my piece, that's all for this video. Putting myself through these games really gives me a greater appreciation for the fan games that are actually good, and I'd love to talk about them in detail. Should I do a video ranking my personal top 10 best favorite fan games? Let me know in the comments. Anyway, feel free to like and subscribe, and also follow my Twitch. I'm planning on getting back into streaming, and I'd love to play more FNAF related things for you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Goodbye!